I, being of sound mind and sound body, fully confident in my mental capacity to distinguish between reality and fiction, fucking love the Doom series. Even Doom 3, with its dollar store spooks and bullshit carnival minigames, for the most part remained fairly true to the straightforwardness of just shooting something in the face until it died. So with that most likely not in mind, id Software has brought us Doom. Again. Still not sure what was wrong with calling it Doom 4 as originally intended, unless they were just deliberately trying to fuck up everyone's filing system, so I guess for clarification purposes I'll point out that we're talking about Doom, the new Doom, not to be confused with Doom, the original Doom, Doom the film, Doom the board game, or Doom the Doctor. My love for the Doom series stems mostly, and also somewhat ironically, from its purity. Being able to confront a problem and have the quickest solution to it also be the easiest is one of the few universal joys in life, and the Doom series is perhaps the interactive embodiment of just such an occasion. Sticking to the formula is what would allow a Doom game, especially this one having sat dormant for over a decade, to succeed, and it pleases me to say that that's pretty much exactly what they did. Excuse me for having been tempered into a perpetual state of jade by the Duke Nukem Forevers and Aliens Colonial Marines of the world, but Doom 4 having been announced all the way back in 2008, and even then heavily implied to have already been in development for at least a year or two, began to resonate ominously as the game received a massive rebranding and visual overhaul in 2013. Not to mention the more recent announcement that copies of the game were not going to be distributed early to media outlets, which never fails to add an entirely new layer of rusty suspicion to the gears of the cognitive hype machine, like a freshly rent batch of HPV to a perfectly functioning set of genitals. But I'll be damned if Doom doesn't seem like a game that actually used its overly long development for something other than blame-throwing and competitive denial, like a certain other game studio whose name shall go unmentioned. Pardon my wishful thinking, but it feels as if it might have used the 8 to 10 years of Doom's dev cycle for actually improving the game. Wild fucking concept, I know, but the pieces are all there. The game runs well and the controls are fluid and work alongside the fast-paced but smooth movement system, although I would recommend finding the rune that allows for complete movement control while jumping, because aiming while jumping can be a bit sticky otherwise. The weapons are rightfully recreated with the welcome addition of various sub-functions, which grants each one additional utility and fun value, and the overall sound design is possibly the biggest improvement over Doom 3, where every weapon sounded like someone blowing raspberries with their mouth being pitched up and down. The level design is a good mix of combat and exploration, with a story delivered in the brief moments of inactivity between skirmishes that is both comfortably unobtrusive and also surprisingly compelling, going so far as to subtly characterize the once blank slate that was the Doom Marine, and present an actual theme in the form of man's disregard for consequence and the delusional pursuit of innovation. The environment design is worthy of an Iron Maiden album cover with an equally kick-ass soundtrack to punctuate the mission-to-mission combat as well as the fantastic boss fights. I can't help it if it's hard to be funny when you're being unabashedly positive, but the Doom single-player campaign is honestly the most fun I've had playing a video game so far this year. And I know it's just May, and that statement has little to no impact until, at least October. But still, I went out of my way to make sure I didn't take this review from the biased perspective of a fan of the series and the action spectacle in general and end up babbling like a broken faucet like I just spent the entire previous paragraph doing, but it is actually just that good. Not perfect, mind you. I have my fair share of gripes. The map interface, for one, is crap on a Charleston cheesecake. You see, the rooms are rendered on the map as textureless blobs based on their overall outline rather than their specific floor plan, and while individual room environments vary, their overall shapes can become indistinguishable, and vertical floors are represented by separate layers, but there's no connection between them, so it can be easy to get lost while you're hunting for secrets and collectibles. I have to say my biggest problem, however, is with the ending, and to put it as diplomatically and spoiler-free as I can, it's kind of shit. It's the only part of the single-player campaign I feel accurately represents the amount of time this game apparently spent in development. It's like 30 seconds after finishing the final boss, the game just ends on this really shitty story DLC baiting anti-climax. Just game over. Not shitty enough to ruin the rest of the game. The pros still exponentially outweigh the cons. I'm finding it hard to argue out of favor of a game that just looks great, sounds great, plays great, and is self-aware enough to know what it wants to be, and isn't trying too hard to be something it's not. But you don't come back from a day at the beach without WebMD telling you got some kind of cancer, and you don't work through 8 years of the video game industry without getting some moldy design document stuck to the bottom of your shoe. One such innovation is user-created content in the form of SnapMap, an insubstantial but ultimately harmless map editor with the obligatory social media integration. The other thing is competitive multiplayer, which definitely renders Doom as a product of the time it's making up for. The multiplayer was developed separately by the same studio who created the multiplayer for the more recent Halo games, and you can certainly tell. Not necessarily a bad thing in and of itself, seeing as the purpose of Halo's multiplayer multiplayer was to provide a console-exclusive alternative to Quake and Unreal Tournament in the first place, but no, it's bad for a completely different reason. Which is a shame, really, because the map design is actually pretty damn good. Too bad the weapon balance is such a rectal wreckage. Explain to me the logic of a rocket launcher that deals 55 damage on a direct hit, whereas the splash damage from a frag grenade can deal up to 85, and a double-barrel shotgun could potentially do more damage than both combined. Not to mention the lightning gun, which automatically directs itself to nearby enemies and can hit multiple fools at the same time, or the map-specific super weapons. Now I'm going to give you a quick breakdown on how those work. You find the gun, you aim it somewhere within the postal code of the enemy you want to hit, whereupon they just die. Oh, and speaking of instant kills, the melee hitboxes must have been wearing the hot pants and hanging out with Bill Cosby because they are fucked up beyond reason, meaning that any spastic flailing of the arms within a 10-foot radius of a potential target at less than half health also results in a sloppy pre-animated death. Despite that, Doom's not getting out of this without a recommendation, because the single-player campaign is honestly strong enough to carry the whole experience and would have been worth the price of admission alone. And since I gained no satisfaction from insulting the functionality of features that remain entirely optional, I won't dwell on the disaster that is the multiplayer longer than it takes to start being boring, which truthfully was about 3 sentences ago. That being said, Doom is a return to form, a fast and cathartic romp through a world where violence is not only the answer, it's also the question. Happy hunting.